Welcome back to another episode of Mug Out Monday. Thanks for coming along. We're gonna get a fire going there now and get some tea on, and then we'll sit down and we'll discuss a few topics that I have put aside related to conservation, and then just some fun to know, useless information, I guess, on some creatures. Once again, the focus of this whole thing is just to bring overall knowledge from all different areas, little random corners of wildlife and conservation to you guys, because I'm a firm believer that the more we know, the more we can respect nature as a whole worldwide. So we'll get started. We're going to collect a little bit of tinder here now. The flies are really thick today, really bad. The black flies, they're out in just full force today. But right here is the perfect spot. There's a lot of really dry kindling in these trees. That'll be enough right there just to get a nice little fire going and boil some water. So let's start. So back in 2016, there was a study done on Steelhead where they took 129 fish and they put them through different scenarios with catch and release, and they measured lactic levels in their blood and glucose levels as well to determine the stressors that was put on the body with catch and release. But with today's culture, there seems to be a growing culture around catch and release. More and more people are getting into catch and release, and less people are actually just fishing for sustenance. When I was growing up, we went out fishing, and it was to get food. Once we got our quota and whatever we were allowed, we came back home. We did have fun, but we didn't fish just for fun. There was a higher purpose behind it, which was to eat. That type of lifestyle has lessened, and there's more and more people now who are finding themselves in the catch and release. During the Steelhead research that they did, they found out that the fish that would put up a fight, they had heightened lactic levels in their blood, meaning that they were a little more lethargic. It took them longer to recover, and when they got upstream and there was obstacles in the way, it had potentially negative effects because they were already tired and exhausted. Now, does that mean catch and release is bad? No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that catch and release is bad. But if a species is struggling, it's probably best just to leave them alone for that year and allow them to rebound. What they noticed with the steelhead is the fish that were out of water between 10 and 30 seconds substantially had a harder time correcting themselves, and the ones that did correct themselves, they actually drifted downstream a lot because they were so lethargic and worn out and tired. Fish don't breathe air like we do. Having them out of water 10 to 30 seconds is bad. More than 30 seconds is worse. If you're gonna catch and release, it is highly recommended that you do so in the water. When you bring the fish to the shore, I know everybody wants to take the fish out, measure it, get a picture and everything else with it. However, you're doing damage to that fish the longer it's out of water, even if it's for a few seconds. Yes, you're not killing the fish, so catch and release obviously would be better for the species. But if it's a population issue they're having, leave them alone is probably the best option. It should be noted as well that the lactic levels in the fish were also a lot higher in fish that were in warmer waters. So if your decision to catch and release is because the water is so warm that year and there's no catching of that fish for sustenance, it's probably best not to actually catch the fish at all if it's due to warmer waters. Colder waters for catch and release tends to have a much more positive result for those fish. And the conclusion of the study, they said, just because an adult fish makes it into the river and survives an encounter with anglers does not necessarily mean it will survive to spawn. So that's just something to keep in mind when you do decide to go out and catch and release, especially if the water ways are warm. Just because you see that fish swim off doesn't mean it will survive to spawn. The damage has probably already been done. So just keep that in mind. I'm not trying to discourage anyone from catch and release, but like anything, you gotta, if you respect the creature, you gotta also respect its habitat, and respecting its habitat means to know when to be part of it and when to pull away from it. Today I got blueberry tea. It's just a herbal tea. I drink herbal teas during the day and caffeinated teas at night and in the morning. Nice blueberry tea. For the first time ever, scientists actually witnessed a three-toed skink, which is a native species of lizards to Australia. They witnessed one give birth and lay eggs at the same time, live birth and lay eggs. The three-toed skink has the ability to either lay eggs or give live birth, depending on its location, where it's from, predators, and its food source. Many years ago, there was a man named Aldo Leopold. Aldo Leopold later became known as the father of conservation. Aldo understood wilderness and ecosystems and how they are incorporated with human interaction more than anyone. So working in forestry, he worked his way up the ranks until he could produce papers and put forth an idea to his superiors, which later got passed. On June 3rd, 1924, the Gila National Forest in New Mexico was signed as the Gila Wilderness Area, leading to more conservation efforts all across North America and ultimately the globe. And mug up to Aldo for all of his efforts and for putting the first initial steps into place so that we can continue on with conservation efforts, so we have hunting and trapping and everything else that we can do, and the love of the outdoors for everyone to enjoy. If you've seen the last Mug Up Monday, you've probably seen where I put this on the screen. The green banded broodsack. Let's look at this creature for a second. So the adult version of this parasite actually lives in a bird's cloaca, which is essentially kind of like their butthole, and it lays eggs into the bird's feces. When the bird poops, that poop lands on the ground or on a leaf or something, and it's consumed by snails. The parasite then will enter the snail's body, climb into its tentacles, and pulsate 40 to 75 times a minute. These parasites will then change the behavior of its host and cause it to be more conspicuous out in the open, climbing on the top of tree branches, and as this parasite pulsates, it attracts more birds. Those birds will then come down, eat the snail, and now they're infected, and the life cycle continues. Don't worry, they're not in North America. If you don't live in North America and you live in places like Denmark, Norway, and Germany, then you can probably worry. You have some zombie snails going around, guys. Well, guys, that'll conclude this week's Mug Up Monday. Thanks for coming along. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. It helps me out a great deal, and it's free for you guys to do. And I like to be able to bring this kind of information to you guys, just little bits each week of some random conservation and wildlife topics. Some might consider it useless information, some might find it interesting information. Nonetheless, it's here every week, Mondays. Thanks, guys. I appreciate your support, and I'll see you guys on the next one.